Evening all. This video is something that I had hoped to do about a couple of weeks ago because DeadPoolZilla, Tyler, had done a video addressing movies that took part in shaping one's lives. And I had some difficulty coming up with some movies within that context. But I still wanted to do a video based on movies, based on cinema that was somehow impactful to me in a sincere and thoughtful way. And I came up with a few movies that were very powerful, in my opinion. Some of you may, have opposing viewpoints for whatever reason, but for me, these movies were kind of dead on. In some cases, these films don't make it into any of my favorites lists because they're not, in many cases, upbeat movies, which I tend to vibe more to, as well as movies with a darker edge. But nonetheless, these are films that kind of hit me pretty hard. The first one I want to talk about is The Mighty. Now, if any of you see the DVD in the store, or perhaps look it up online, you'll see that most notably Sharon Stone's name is featured quite prominently on the cover. For those of you who are not Sharon Stone fans, you shouldn't be dismayed by that, because that was simply a marketing ploy. She is in it, but her screen time, probably all told, doesn't even add up to 10 minutes. This movie is squarely on the shoulders of two young boys who hadn't even reached teenage years yet, and that's Eldon Henson and Macaulay Culkin's younger brother, Kieran. And what was so strong about this movie was Kieran played someone who had a muscular disorder. It was something I would say it was akin to muscular dystrophy, but it wasn't that per se. But it was something that he needed help getting around, so he was always on crutches, because his legs, if they weren't paralyzed, they were definitely immobile. But what his character had about him was that he related everything to the Knights of Camelot. So often he would be daydreaming about Camelot, and then when he wasn't daydreaming about Camelot, when he was focusing on the moment, whether it was with his friend or other folks in school or whatever the case is, he would still relate things to sort of a Camelot or Sherwood Forest type of mindset. So his friend Eldon, who played Max, uh, he was like a big kid. He was the kind of kid that you would kind of, if you're in the comic books, you would think he would grow up to be Ben Grimm or somebody. But they formed this bond that even though Max didn't care for, and I forget what Karen's character's name was, even though Max didn't care for Karen initially, they ended up becoming close and had a real strong bond. So they developed this friendship where essentially Max would become Karen's legs quite often, with Max carrying him on his shoulders. Well, this movie was very bittersweet, and you come to find out that things are worse for Karen's character than you were initially led to believe. And when Max finds out about how dire the situation is, and then what the inevitability is, his reaction is so powerful. If I were a different kind of person, I probably would have been bawling my eyes out, practically curled in the fetal position because of how powerful that scene was. And without going into spoiler territory in case someone wants to check it out, ultimately the movie has a good message. It's just that to get to it, there's some heavy stuff you got to go through to get there, and it was a hard movie to watch, but ultimately it was a great movie to watch, and I can't speak more highly of it. Another movie that I thought was very impactful to me was the movie Pay It Forward. This also weighed heavily on a young actor at the time. This is, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe longer. But Haley Joel Osment. This is probably the thing I've liked him in the most. And again, it's another one of those stories where even though the message is a good one, it's still hard to get through because of what his character has to go through and the inevitability of what ends up happening with him is just almost more than one could bear. But that movie was very impactful upon me. The next film, I don't recall exactly whether this was a straight up movie or a miniseries. It was something made for TV. I don't recall it ever being at the theaters. It was called The Lathe of Heaven. And conceptually, this movie was such a mind trip that just to consider what was going on in this movie would have your mind blown. This is not for someone who is jaded by the looks of, the looks of today's special effects. This was something that was done on less than a shoestring budget, but the concepts that were being dealt with within this picture were just, what I would imagine, although I've never gone through it myself, is what I would imagine someone that's going through an acid trip would be tripping on. Essentially, a scientist created or came in the possession of what I can only call like a dream machine, which would, if you allowed yourself to give yourself into this machine and you were the right person, the right candidate, you would find yourself with the ability to alter reality, essentially play God. Now, I'm not talking about any kind of genie kind of stuff or witchcraft kind of stuff. This was almost literally putting yourself in the Messiah's chair. And for an example, if you had a loved one or if you had a family member that you didn't care for too much and you decided, okay, I'm going to dream them away, they wouldn't simply disappear. They would be gone essentially from never existing. So it's like you dream your family member away, then all of a sudden everybody that's looking at family photos where this person, say a cousin, would be, every picture that he was in, he'd be out of. So it wasn't a matter of just making him disappear. He would no longer exist because essentially you've warped reality in such a way that he never existed. And the only person that would be aware of it would be the person that would have the benefit of having used this machine. The movie, I believe, was done in the late 70s, if not earlier, and I think was like really way ahead of its time. And it's a mind trip. It really blew me away, and it was just thinking about it. It's kind of like going back in time and reliving some of those moments. It's like it captures your mind, but you really don't want to take it there because it's like it's too much power for one individual to have, but nonetheless, it was something that that stuck with me, obviously, for a long time, given that this is 2011 and I'm talking about a film from the 70s. Now, the last film that I want to talk about, which happens to be my favorite movie ever, is M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable. The greatest comic book movie not about a comic book. And I also think it was his greatest movie. I thought it was better than Signs, better than The Sixth Sense, both of which I liked, and better than any of that dreck he's released afterwards. But Unbreakable, to me, when you sum it up, was basically about, on the surface, of course, it's about good and evil, but to me, deep down, what that movie was about was one's place in the world and where you fit within it. And as tragic a character as Samuel L. Jackson's character, Mr. Glass, was, I could not help but to feel for him even more so than Bruce Willis's character, because this guy, with the problems that he had, just trying to find his way in the world, his purpose in the world. I think that's kind of what we're all about in some way or another. And I think that Shyamalan was able to convey that emotion, convey that feeling, convey that substantive mindset in such a near perfect way that I don't think I'll ever see a movie that I'll like more than that I'll put as either a favorite or a best over that movie. I'm sure there's people that this movie means next to nothing to them because the sum total of their life experiences doesn't click with what M. Night had going on. But for me, I thought it was one of the greatest movies ever, and I indeed feel that from what I've viewed, personally, I consider it the greatest movie, or at least not necessarily the greatest movie, but definitely my favorite movie. So with that, those were the films that I found most impactful upon me in one way or another. And with that, I'll bid y'all an adieu. I'll see you when I see you, and night out.